Hi, Elon.
Hi, Nikhil.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. It's an honor to meet you. Unfortunately, online, but it's the best way you can do today. And I'm Mikhail. I'm the former president of Betel. I work 5 years with the investment industry. I also am an entrepreneur and an investor. So I co-founded 4 companies and invested in other 7 companies, and actually have an exit this
Wow.
yesterday. So good
Congratulations.
week for us. Thank you. But your story is much more impressive, and I'm honored to meet you. And so, shall we start? Please, can you talk about yourself? You have been an Israeli since then. Where's your family from?
So
Um,
I'm 51 years old. I was born in Jerusalem in 1969. I have 3 brothers. My parents were in the medical industry. My father was a doctor and my mother was a nurse, and you can imagine where they met. Um, I grew up in Jerusalem until the 3rd grade, which at that point of time, my parents relocated to Boston, Massachusetts in the US. And the entire family moved out there to spend 3 years. And then I came back to Jerusalem. I completed my high school and then went to the army. And after the army, I immediately came back to Jerusalem and joined the Hebrew University, where I did both my BA and my master's degree. And after I concluded my MBA, unfortunately, I left Jerusalem to Tel Aviv.
Unfortunately, but you can come back always. Thank God.
It's 1 hour drive, no problem.
Yeah. And there's a story about a grandfather, right? And then
Yes. So my family originally comes from Berlin in Germany. My father's father was a pharmacist who came before the war with his family, and they based themselves in Haifa, where he opened a small pharmacy, which to the outside was a pharmacy, but the truth of it, he was working for the Haganah, which was the organization.
Yes.
Which was fighting the British mandate, and he had what we call in Hebrew a slik, which is kind of a secret warehouse to hide weapons for the Haganah, which was inside the pharmacy. And during the nights, he worked for the Haganah and supplied the weapons and ammunition and all kinds of things. So that's on my father's side. On my mother's side, my grandfather was a judge in Berlin until 1938, when he was fired and then immediately fled the country and came over to Palestine. And since he already had a family which he needed to support, he could not practice law because it was a different kind of legal system here. And he became a carpenter. And he had a big carpentry in Jerusalem. And being a carpenter, he became what we call a meister in weaving machines. And he used to sell his weaving machines to German ladies who also came as immigrants to Palestine. And I was very close to him. He was a very special man. We spent a lot of time, myself and my brothers, in my grandfather's carpentry. And we loved spending time with him. We loved working with the wood. But he was also a very smart man. After he sold his carpentry, at the age of over 70, he came to the Hebrew University and he studied both mathematics and English literature. And he completed his BA in mathematics when he was 75 years old.
Oh my God. So accomplished everything in life.
Yes.
Yes, incredible. And then this, your background in your family background in pharmacies, this helps you with your volunteer work at Magen David.
Yeah. So
That's a way to continue your tradition.
At least when I was a teenager, it was very common for teenagers to volunteer in different organizations. And obviously, because of the fact that I grew up in a family which was medical oriented, I chose to join the Magen David Adom service at the age of 16. And I was very, very active in Magen David Adom up to the point where I was kind of the head of the volunteers of the Jerusalem branch. I think every free moment that I had, I was spending as a volunteer in Magen David Adom. And obviously, you know, coming back from the cases that I took care of, I had the subject to discuss with my parents, who understood the medical side of things. But it was a very intense period, and I loved it. It gave me a lot of adrenaline. I have to tell you, Jerusalem was a very active city at the time with terrorist attacks and accidents and all kinds of incidents. So it was a pretty intense period of time. And
I have a half similar story. My mother is a psychiatrist, and one of the companies that I co-founded is a home care. It's a home assist care. So in a way, continue the tradition.
Yeah.
Nice. Fantastic.
But during the period when I was a volunteer in Magen David Adom, for example, there was a big strike of all the nurses in the country. It was a very long strike, and actually the nurses did not come to the hospitals, and the hospitals were really in need of people who can help the doctors. So because I was, you know, a kind of a paramedic, I volunteered and went to Hadassah, and I was working at the emergency room. So yes, it was very interesting, and I loved that. At that point of time, I was sure I'm going to study medicine and become a doctor. But
so you're not in college yet. So it was before.
No, that was before. It was when I was in high school, between the age of 6 to 18. Yeah.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah. Before the army too, right?
That's before the army, yes. Yeah.
And then, of course, everybody needs to go to the army. Can you share some stories if you?
Yeah. So we enlisted in the age of 18, as you know. Yeah. And initially I started in the pilot's course, but I did not last long. Not because I didn't continue the course, but because I was already pre-screened to join a special operations unit. And I really wanted to do that. So at the moment I could resign from the pilot's course, I took advantage of that. I resigned and I joined the special ops unit, where I spent the next almost 6 years.
Sayeret Matkal?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
I was an officer in that unit, and I was released with the rank of captain.
Oh, so
and obviously the military service was very intense, but very rewarding. And you know, being an Israeli, that's an integral part of who we are. And obviously that has a lot of contribution on your personality and on your career. Here in Israel, you know, coming from the right units is very, very important on how you develop in your professional career later, because everybody knows one another. And if you come from a good unit and you have the right connections, it's easy for you to get into good jobs after the army.
Yeah, and then I suppose that after that you went to college, and I imagine that this helps you a lot and how you ended up in the investment industry, right?
So I really
was a thing that you always liked, or you learned? Never knew it.
I never thought about it. As I said, I thought I was going to study medicine. My parents were really pushing me in that direction. But after the army and after 6 years of very intense service, the truth of it, I was really, really tired. And when I had to make the application to the university, I was thinking, if I go into medicine, you have to study for 7 years, and then you go and you're really nothing after 7 years. You're just starting your career.
Yes.
And I said, no, I was feeling so tired and so drained out. I said, no, I'm going to look for something which is easier in a sense. let's see if I like it, and let's see where it takes me. So I started studying mathematics and economy. And as I was working, during the first year of college, I joined the Central Bank of Israel at a student's position, being an analyst in their research department. And after a year as being an analyst in the research department, there was a employment fair on the campus in Har HaTzofim in the Hebrew University. And I was walking around the employment fair, around the booths with some of my friends, and with some of the companies which looked interesting, we left our CVs. One of those booths was the booth of Bezeq, which was the government-owned communication company, the largest in Israel at the time. And after a few weeks, I got a call from Bezeq, from a lady at Bezeq, who told me that she was putting up a special team to work with the CEO at the time it was a secret project, and she was offering me to join. And I went to the interview and I joined. And the secret mission was to privatize the company. So we were a special small team within the headquarters of Bezeq, and we were responsible on laying out the business plan, how to privatize the company. And once the process of privatization was complete, myself and my other team members were nominated as board members in the different subsidiaries that were created. This could only happen in a government company where somebody young,
yes,
experienced as me could get such a responsibility. But sometimes, you know, in life you need luck. So I was at the right place at the right time, and I was lucky. And I became the head of the business development unit for Bezeq, and I was representing Bezeq at the boards of different companies, of the sort of subsidiaries, which was a fantastic school for me in terms of business.
And this was like 1980, 1990, something like that?
This was 95.
95. Okay.
Yes.
So when the investment was taken off, investment community in Israel.
Yes. And one of my responsibilities was also to do mergers and acquisitions for Bezeq. And I managed one such process of a company which was represented by the leading private investment bank based in Israel. And after we completed the deal, I received a phone call from the chairman of that business, of that investment bank, who told me he was impressed from the way I worked around the deal and offered me to join them as an investment banker. And it was a kind of an offer that you cannot refuse. So I left Bezeq and I joined that investment bank, which was called Dovrat Shren. The head of the investment bank was a senior business figure. Everybody in Israel knew him. His name was Aaron Dovrat. So I started to work with him very closely. And in 1999, he decided to sell his shares in the investment bank and start his own boutique. And he took with him to the new boutique his secretary and driver who were working with him for 30 years and offered me to join. And so,
fantastic.
Which
so
I
then
did.
Viola was created, right?
That was when Viola was created, yes.
Which is one of the, if not the one, but one of the leading venture firms in Israel, and you started the whole ecosystem. Can you share about? I love this story about the.
Yeah, so Viola was created in the year 2000 again with Mr. Dovrat and with his son. His son Shlomo Dovrat is a very well-known technology entrepreneur who took his first company public when he was 26 years old. That was in 1983, and so we started Viola. And we became, after 20 years, we became the largest investment house investing in technology companies. We are about 100 people in the group. We are 20 partners. We manage in Viola about $3.5 billion US. We invest all across technology from early stage to late stage, startup companies, growth companies. We invest both through equity and through debt, and we have different sub-funds. Each fund has its own specialization. So we have a generalistic venture capital fund, we have a late stage growth fund, we have a fintech fund. We are very strong with fintech. A year ago, we launched a gaming fund, so a fund that invests only in online games. Israel is a powerhouse for online games. And because of our size and because of the fact we have so much deal flow, this last February, I launched a new platform, which is part of the Viola Group, but is branded, as you can see here. It's called Israel Legacy Partners, which is a different platform associated with Viola. I'm sitting in the same office space as Viola, but I'm making investments now in Israeli companies, not necessarily in technology, but we are taking big positions in family-owned businesses, which are existing businesses, profitable businesses, but that are looking for growth capital or for long-term partners.
I love this thesis, the tech-enabled thesis with a very strong shareholder. And then in the end, the main goal is to take it public, or they're already public? It's just the growth side of it.
So we are very, very thematic about growth. We are always looking for growth. And if it takes a short period of time or if it takes a long period of time, we don't care, as long as we can see profitable growth in these kind of companies. So growth is the real issue here, and we are very activist in the companies that we invest in. We are real, what we call hands-on investors in helping our companies to grow. And when we are talking about growth, you know, Israel is a small country, so growth necessarily involves going outside of Israel. And so we are very active all over the world with our ecosystem to help our companies grow outside of the country. One of the ways we do that is through our local partners in each one of the countries that our companies want to grow into. Brazil is one of them. I have a lot of friends in Sao Paulo. And certainly Brazil is a very interesting market for Israeli companies. And quite a few of our portfolio companies are already active in Brazil, either directly by opening offices in Brazil or through joint ventures that they have with local partners.
I know a few of them. I also have friends, and I know one company that's our portfolio. It's Tenaris.
Yes.
Taranis, yes.
An agrotech company. Yes.
They have located here. It's fantastic. So you have experienced all the development of the investment community from maybe 0 to 100 and in the last 30, 20 years in Israel. Can you tell us about how the ecosystem developed there and what you can imagine for the future?
So yes, you know, again, I think one of the advantages, if you wish, is the fact we are a small country. So everybody knows one another. But 30 years ago, Israel was not such a startup nation like it is now. It really started back then, and it was a combination of several factors that helped this country become what it is now in terms of technology. One of the factors is obviously education. And the Hebrew University has a lot to contribute around that. The universities here in the education system were and still are very good, and people are highly educated. So that's one factor. The second factor is the army, where the army had to invest and still invests a lot in technology in order to keep being strong in terms of the intelligence force, technology, and all around that. And number three is the government, which in this case, you know, in many cases, governments are prohibited.
I think this is the only case I ever heard about it. But
yeah, in most cases, government is prohibiting business to develop. In this case, the Israeli government was very, very smart and very strong in helping to create the technology industry in Israel through all kinds of programs and subsidies, and really helped to boost this ecosystem in Israel. And the way it works now, we have dozens and dozens of different funds and investment companies and incubators And it's a very, very rich ecosystem. Most of the people know one another and work together. Usually when we make an investment, we don't come alone. We always pick partners to join us in these transactions because we don't want to be alone around the table. Some funds are specialized funds around specific investment themes. For example, medical device, fintech, security, cyber, and some funds and investors are more generalistic in nature. We know everybody knows us. We have meetings. We are based in an office space which has a lot of funds around us. So when we go out to have lunch, we see a lot of people we know. And, we change ideas and talk about the industry. Now it has become not only a local industry, but really an international industry because of the success of the Israeli technology scene. We have many, many international entities which are coming into Israel, opening offices in Israel in order to make investments. For example, the last announcement from the last couple of weeks is that Blackstone, which is probably the world's largest investment fund, has nominated a representative here and is opening offices here. And the reason is because now we have significant large Israeli technology companies. And so they see the opportunity to make very large investments in these companies. By the way, Viola is part of many of these large companies which we call unicorns. So companies which are valued over $1 billion US, we call them unicorns. This year was fantastic for Israeli companies in general and for the unicorns in specific. And so these companies are attracting a lot of foreign investors that are coming into Israel.
And can you tell us about how the Nathan Fund works and what's about it?
So the Nathan Fund, it's actually called the Nati Kirsch Fund. That's on the philanthropy side. So generally in Viola, and specifically about myself, we are very much involved in philanthropy. Each one of the partners in Viola is involved in some kind of philanthropy that he chooses. I'm involved in 4 different philanthropies. The one which I'm most active in as an active chairman of that philanthropy is called the Nathan Fund, or in Hebrew, Keren Natan, and which is funded by a single donor called Nati Kirsch. And the idea is that we give microloans to entrepreneurs who want to start a business, but are non-fundable. That means these are people who cannot get capital from any source. They cannot go to a bank and get a loan. They don't have money from the family. And these people, for example, are ex-convicts or people who went through bankruptcy. And so the banking system would never allow them to get a dollar from them. But nevertheless, we find a lot of people who have an entrepreneurial spirit and they have good ideas. So the fund gives them interest-free loans with no collateral. We start, our average loan is about $60,000 US. It's a wonderful project because every year we have hundreds of people who get these kind of loans. And
they are convertible? So if you want to convert, just a loan, just a simple loan.
Interest-free loan, which has to be repaid, but some, as you can imagine, many of these entrepreneurs are not successful.
Of course.
They start and they fail, and if they do everything by the book, that's fine. We don't request the loan back. The only cases where we are going after people is if they are crooks or something. If they get the loan and they don't start the business or they just disappear or something, then we do it according to the legal system here. We try to get the loan back. But most of the people, they start the business and they pay back the loan with no interest. And now we are actually discussing how we can evolve this project and also to give them some business advice and business help in order to try and have a better chance of success with the projects that we are helping. So that's philanthropy number 1, where I am active chairman. The second philanthropy, which I'm involved as an active board member, is a foundation called Hand in Hand, which is a project for coexistence between Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs. And what we do in Hand in Hand, we initiate, we establish, and we manage a network of dual language schools, which host Jewish students and Arab students together. And they study both in Hebrew and in Arabic. So everybody speaks both languages. The entire staff of the schools are a combination of Jewish teachers and Arab teachers. And it's a fantastic project. We have 7 sites, which start at kindergarten. And one of the 7, which is based in Jerusalem, also has a high school. So all the way up to 12th grade. So
nice. So from the early age you're starting, and then they are bound together.
Early age, and it's a well-kept secret that we have a long waiting list of both Jewish kids and Arab kids who want to join our schools. In order to make our schools attractive, we are investing a lot of resources to make them the best schools around. So in terms of the education level that our kids get in these schools, they're amongst the best in the country. So both, Jewish parents and Arab parents want to send their kids specifically to this school. Obviously, they also have an agenda which they want good coexistence between Jews and Arabs here. So that's the second philanthropy. The third philanthropy, I'm a board member in a foundation which is based in the northern part of the country, in the Galilee. And we are sponsoring biotech, food tech, and agrotech entrepreneurs who want to start their business and base it up in the Galilee. And so we give them grants under the condition that they start the company up in the Galilee, which is the periphery of Israel. Not a lot of businesses go up to that area. As you know, most of the businesses are concentrated around Tel Aviv. So we want more businesses to be based up in the Galilee. So this foundation, this is what their target is, to have those businesses up in the Galilee. And the fourth foundation is a foundation which is called Peace by Tourism. And what we do is, again, it's coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians. And we manage a program where we give scholarships every year to Jewish Israelis and Arab Palestinians to go study, become chefs in the best chef school in France, which is called the Paul Bocuse School.
Fantastic. Yes, I know it.
And the students, they have to agree to work together and live together during their period at the Paul Bocuse Institute. And
if one of them decide to leave, both of them have to leave, something like that, or?
No, they have to live together in the same apartment.
If it doesn't work, what happens?
It never happened. If it doesn't work,
never happened.
But most important is they also sign up to a kind of reserve duty to the foundation. So once they finish the school and they start their careers, whether they come back to Israel or if they go to work somewhere else, if the foundation needs them, they need to come back for a few days every year to work for us. And what we do with that is we run a summer camp, which is like, I don't know if you have the TV program in Brazil where we have people competing on cooking.
Yes, like, MasterChef.
MasterChef, exactly. So the summer camp for kids is like a MasterChef, and the kids are 50% Israelis, 50% Palestinian, and the entire team that runs the camp are the students who are our graduates. So they teach the kids how to cook Palestinian food, Israeli food, and it's really fantastic for coexistence between, the people.
Yes, thank you so much, and incredible for that. I think you can manage to work between your philanthropy sides, right? A little bit.
I'm very busy, as you can.
Thank you so much for your time again. And then after these peace agreements with Persian Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia, you see, as you are in this Arab Jewish community and trying to help things work together. Have you seen anything new, any improvements, or optimistic about that?
We're enthusiastic about it and very, very optimistic. I think the agreements are fantastic, and the minute they were announced, we are seeing a lot of movement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, and for business people from over there coming over here. Just a week ago, I hosted here in my office a representative of the government of Abu Dhabi who's interested in doing things together. This is really a dream come true, and the way they have been managing this is very open, very professional. It really shows that, once you take the conflict aside, it's fantastic to work together, and we're very enthusiastic about it. I have not traveled to Abu Dhabi or Bahrain yet, but many of my partners and many of my friends have already done so. And there are daily flights now between Tel Aviv and the United Arab Emirates. And I think it's a wonderful thing, and we are looking forward for more.
Great. It's almost a dream, right? Coming true right now.
The dream come true, and quite a few of our portfolio companies have already opened up offices in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi, and there's a lot of business opportunity both ways.
Incredible. And I think you said it before, but we have passed by COVID is a topic that we can miss. And yes, it's terrible that we have so many deaths, but as a country now, Israel I think was one of the first, not very small, but small to medium countries that managed to pass through this pandemic. And how do you see the Israel role in this, and how this affects you and your industry? As you said before, it was a great year, but a tough year, right?
Yeah, so in a sense, we live in a kind of a dissonance in terms of business. 2020 was fantastic, one of the best years. In terms of life here, it was pretty complex because we went through 3 lockdowns where everything was closed and we were staying at home. And obviously, we worked a lot through platforms like this, like Zoom. I have to tell you that personally, 2020 was probably one of the best years in my life, because although, first of all, my entire family, nobody had COVID, we didn't have any problems, but it was a very special year because we could really, have a great time in terms of the family and with the kids at home. We were very active in going back to our old hobbies, to reading books, to having a lot of sports. So in terms of the family, it was really good. But now everything here is back to normal, apart from cinemas, which are still closed, and incoming tourism. These are the only 2 sectors which are still closed. Other than that, the country is back to normal. We are back to music shows. All the restaurants are open and full. If you want to look for a place in a good restaurant in Tel Aviv, you have to make reservations 2-3 weeks ahead because they are exploding with people. Everybody's back to the office. We are allowed outside to walk with no masks on. Inside the buildings, we still have some restrictions in terms of wearing a mask. But as you may know, most of the population here is already vaccinated 2 times. The level of COVID now is very, very low here. So it looks really good. The kids are still not vaccinated, but we are waiting for the American FDA to approve vaccinations for kids. And the system here is ready to launch a project to vaccinate the kids. I can tell you an interesting fact is that we are seeing a lot of incoming Jewish tourism from Jewish people from all over the world who are coming to Israel to get the vaccines here, including from São Paulo.
And thank you for that. And we are hoping to get you in your stage. But right now we are just opening from our most tough and recent lockdown. So it's going slowly. We have, I think, almost 60 million doses delivered in Brazil, but Brazil has 200 million people, so it's a long way.
The long way.
And we hope that in the end of the year we can be celebrating together. But
yeah, now Israel is trying to help some other countries. I know now there are a lot of equipment which is being sent to India. So, from initially being under a lot of pressure here, the government oversupplied, and now we have excess, which is being exported to other countries like India. So obviously, we prefer being in this kind of status.
Yeah. And then, have you been to Brazil? Have you been to São Paulo? I know probably you have some friends because the community here is very, very close there.
Yeah, before COVID, I visited Sao Paulo about 2 times a year. So I was quite a few times in Sao Paulo, and I have very good friends in Sao Paulo. I have to mention one who really recommended that we have this conversation, who is Bernardo Zamikowski, who is a very good friend, and thank you, Bernardo, for making this introduction.
Thank you, Bernardo, too. It's a great pleasure and an honor to meet you, England. So, I've been on this travel between São Paulo and Israel, and then investment community between Israel and Brazilian investors. So, could you recommend how a Brazilian could invest in a fund in Israel? What are your recommendations about which one to choose, how to meet people, and a question, my personal question: would you like to invest in Brazilian companies? How do you think that Brazilian is going on this private equity venture capital stage?
Like making an investment in any country in the world doesn't make difference if you invest in Israel or in another country. You have to do your due diligence, and you have to do your homework and not do it long distance. If you want to make an investment in Israel or in any other country, it's best to come over and to meet the people and to do your homework and to do your research. It's the same for Israel like anywhere else. Israel has a lot of programs which are very good for international investors, including in technology, but not only in technology. Israel offers various investment programs which have zero tax in Israel for foreign investors, so it's very easy to make an investment here. In terms of Israeli funds, or for us to make investment in Brazil, yes, we are very interested. As I mentioned before, many of our portfolio companies have either joint ventures or actually opened up operations in Brazil. As I said before, they also do that after doing a lot of due diligence and doing homework. And usually they need the local partner to work with because it's a different way of doing.
Brazil is complicated too.
A different way of doing business, so you need local partners, and we are always happy to get to know good partners in Brazil. And usually that would be my recommendation for people who want to invest in Brazil. They need a trustworthy local partner in Brazil. One of the main areas that we are interested in is fintech. So fintech is a very important theme for us to invest in, and we understand and we know, and we've done a lot of work on the Brazilian financial system, and we have a lot of respect for the major Brazilian banks and for some of the fintech ideas that are coming from Brazil. It's a huge market. It's a huge market with a lot of population that is not bankable, so you need to find other solutions. So it's very interesting for us to see opportunities coming on the fintech side from Brazil. Also in terms of agrotech, Brazil is a fantastic target market for us. So you mentioned Taranis, for example. So you cannot find an Israeli agrotech company which is not looking at Brazil as a target market. So there's obviously a lot of opportunities around that. And for general other technologies, cyber, for example, cybersecurity, Brazil is a fantastic market for that as well. So our cybersecurity companies are also looking into Brazil. we need to find the right opportunities.
Yeah, and I think we have a great opportunity ahead, and then political stabilization, and then we can grow much more stable, less volatile, and a better place to do business. I hope this will get this in the future. So I think you're ending our fantastic call, and I would like to ask you if you have some special message for some especially young people. What it's like to be an Israeli and in the technology guy that you are there. Technology philanthropy. I don't know which one you do more, but
I do more investing than philanthropy. Well, maybe in a few years' time, after we finish with the business side, we'll do more philanthropy. But that, I think, is an important message, because I think people can really have a combination between their professional life and also doing something good for other people. So the combination is important, and I really believe that people should spend some time in doing good for the community. It's very important for us here. Everybody in my company is engaged in some way or another in some way of philanthropy. And I really believe that, like Spider-Man says, that with great power comes great responsibility. We believe in that, and we implement that. So because we are influential, and because we have a strong standing in the market, and because we are investing in so many companies which employ thousands of people, it's also our responsibility to give back to the community. And each one of our managers is responsible to find the little niche where he feels he can do good. And I think that's an important message.